Hey there everybody. So in this video I'm going to demonstrate the process for switching this cassette out here that's on my Wahoo trainer for this other cassette, which has some lower gears. They're both 11 speed. This is just the stock cassette that came with the trainer. I think it's a Sunrace. It's 11 to smallest cog and then a 28 for the biggest cog, and I'm going to put this one that's a Shimano 105 11 speed, and it is an 1132. So just trying to get a little bit lower gears for some of these gnarly heel sections and whatnot. Tools I'm going to be using are chain whip, cassette lock ring tool. This one's Pedro's. There's several different versions of these. I've got one at the shop that I use primarily that is a little less work because you don't have to take off the skewer nut. And I'll get to that in just a minute. And then this just wrench that fits over the cassette lock ring tool there. So, and if you're going to use a 8, 9, or 10 speed cassette on this 11 speed free hub body, which is what comes stock on the trainer, then you'll need one of these 1.8 millimeter spacers. Or if you're going to do an 11 speed that's a 34 tooth large cog or bigger, then you will need this spacer as well, just because that 34 tooth is back spaced a little bit. So essentially the cassette is the same width as a 10 speed 8, 9, 10 speed cassette. So kind of confusing, but yeah, if you're 34 tooth or bigger, you'll need a spacer, which comes with the trainer if they're new. So all right, first step, I'm just gonna shift this guy down into the very smallest cog there, and then I'm gonna pull my bike off, so bear with me for just a second. Okay, so like I say, the skewer nut here, we're gonna have to pull this guy off in order to get our tool in here. So spring, always make sure when you put it back to put the skinny end facing over. Set that aside for a minute. We're just gonna not pulling the skewer all the way out, but just be mindful, this piece here, if you're going to move the trainer around or whatever, that can just fall right out. So anyway, we're going to put our cassette lock ring tool right there and engage it into the actual lock ring. And we're going to, doesn't really matter where you put this is kind of an old school chain whip with a really fat chain ring. So I'm just going to put it on the biggest one here. Biggest cog, and so I like to line these up to where I can just put this a little closer, just squeeze these together. And just take that off till the lock ring comes all the way off there, and from here that cassette will just slide right off. So just were 11 or a 34 tooth or bigger, we would need that spacer, and it would go on this back side here. But since this is a 32, we don't need that. So same as bike or anything else, there's always one spline here that is a little wider here, or it's a little skinny here, and then the gap, the little gate there, is bigger. So you want to just find the big one on the cassette, and it'll only slide on one way. And then just, make sure your spacers, usually there's no spacer on this particular 105, and, it will only go on one way. If you try to put it on backwards, it won't go. So we got our big piece, spacer, stack these guys all up on here. And these last two don't, you know, the spacer is built into the cog there, so we don't need an extra one. Now, normally on a bike wheel, you can hold the wheel and lock this guy down. I guess we could probably do it on, get it tight enough just by holding onto this flywheel. Push our skewer back through. Say that piece will fall out, so spring with the small end facing inwards, and then just adjust this as needed to where the cam lock, when you got it sticking about straight across, it's hard to pull. Okay, so I got it on here, got the bike all set back up and riding through it just to test it, and I noticed that the you know, anytime you put a bigger cassette, you know, you always have to adjust as far as the your B-knuckle screw, which is this one right here. It's just a 2mm hex key or Allen key that's gonna adjust it. And so we want to get that a little further away. What happens if you, let's try to pedal it by hand. So when it's too close, it sounds like this. You know, as we pivot that thing back, it's going to be quieter. And normally you want about, I don't know, 5-6 millimeters between the bottom of the cassette and the top of your pulley wheel there. So if I, there we go. I'm just going to pedal it, and as I tighten this in, see how much that gets us. Right. Seems pretty good there. It's nice and quiet going in between gears. You know, sometimes you may have to adjust your cable tension just a little bit if it's a little, you know, hesitates going one way or the other. But yeah, essentially that's the gist of it. Just, you know, as far as swapping that cassette out, you know, if you're going for a radical change, you want to make sure your, you know, your chain's going to be long enough as well. You should be able to go over the big cog and big chain ring and have a little bit of, you know, tension still left in your derailleur cage there. So anyway, hopefully if you're trying to switch one of those guys out and you're not familiar with the process, this video was helpful. And that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.